By Jove, welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelists of the Roses, and today we're doing Joey. Jova, you're up.
Joju. I am Joey, Duelist. I believe you've been looking for me.
Wow, Joey, how the hell did you have a New York accent in Europe?
Go ahead.
Brooklyn is forever. In England, I'm known as Christopher Yorsick. But I'll be best remembered as the slayer of the Rose Duelist. Wow, even in old times.
I'm Joey, aka Christopher.
Remembered lips.
Okay, you know what? I do dig how they kept his mannerisms similar to Joey while sort of localizing it into the time frame date.
They're going for the ancestor route, most likely.
Oh, I get that, but I will give them credit that it's not like they have them speak entirely like their modern counterparts, but they do have them act like them in a good enough way, because sometimes lazy writers have the ancestors talk exactly like their descendants did, even though that doesn't make sense with the time frame date, so... No, I mean, as corny as it is that they look exactly the same, I can at least dig that they are giving it the full college try with it.
Sure. Duez, remember, when it comes to our voice acting in this playthrough, we're 4 kids. We're going full 4 kids with it. We're dubbing it the way 4 kids most likely would have dubbed it, with the same voices.
If I recall correctly, I think they did change up the voices for some ancestors here and there. I don't remember specific cases overall, but I feel like for Taya's ancestor, they did change up her voice a bit.
In the final season? Well, I can tell you that, what's her name again? It's the woman who plays Taya.
Amy Birnbaum?
That's it. I can tell you that Amy, well, actually, Tiana was not in the final season, now that I think about it. Okay, let me put it this way, too. I can tell you, Joe, that Eric Stewart gives Egyptian Seto the exact same voice he gives to Kaiba.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely for him, and I can kinda, okay, when it comes to the whole Pharaoh and, you know, oh god, what's, Kaiba's ancestor referred to as?
Seto. Oh.
No, Kaiba's ancestor,
Seto.
not Yugi's.
He's just Seto.
Oh, okay, fair enough, like, I guess for those two, I can get them giving the exact same voices, but if I recall correctly, they do change up the voices for some of the other ancestors.
That's the thing, Jova. Remember Tiana and Jono from Forbidden Memories, the prequel to this game? They're not in that final season. Like, in the final season of the Duel Monster series, they show Seto, and yes, they showcase that, you know, Yami is from this time period, and he sounded the same there. But there are no Egyptian versions of Joey, Taya, and Tristan. Instead, they have the backstories of how both Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl came to be in the first place. Because the Dark Magician was originally the Pharaoh's biggest servant, who actually was the original owner of the Millennium Ring. So, before Bakura took it. Alright, so let's go! Flame Swordsman! Well,
AKA one of the worst fusion monsters ever. Like, apparently even this game realized he's a terrible fusion monster, so they just made him a normal monster.
I think stuff like Fusionist are still worse, technically speaking.
Remember,
no, that's the thing. One of the better ones.
If I recall correctly, Flame Swordsman is one of the fusions that actually has lesser attack than one of his components.
Oh, okay, I'll have to go back and look.
It might have, but again, the worst fusion monster ever? Not exactly. Again, there are a bit things that are a bit worse, but let me check just to be sure.
That's the thing, Joe.
Like I said, even this game realized it because they pretty much made him a non-fusion in this game.
That's the thing, even in the anime, Flaming Swordsman was most of the time at least treated like a normal monster.
Yeah,
so I never got why in the actual game he's a fusion.
Because because the card was conceived before the anime, technically.
Yeah.
Yes, Pedro?
Well, remember, Jova, there are no such... In both Forbidden Memories and this game, in this duology in general, there are no fusion monsters. Instead, you just mush 2 monsters, and as long as they're fusible, it just fuses. There's no polymerization, there's no... The traditional fusion method we know from the real card game doesn't actually exist in these games. So, of course, there will be no fusion monsters.
It's ironic because what you're describing is essentially synchro summons.
Yeah, this was so basically
or
these games.
Fusion to an extent.
These games basically predicted that.
All right, the components for Flame Swordsman are Flame Manipulator with 900 attack and 1000 defense, and Masaki, the legendary swordsman, with 1100 attack and defense, while Flaming Swordsman instead has 1800 attack and 1600 defense. So stat-wise, it's a bit better it's at least better than the previous two components, but it's sadly not much, especially for a level 5 monster.
And summoning, and given what you have to do to summon him, there are literally normal monsters with higher attack than him.
Or at least with an effect. Again, most of the early fusion monsters, including these, have the caveat of they were built in order to be having a bigger attack than the average monster back then, but to compensate that, they did not even have effects to put. By nowadays standards, or hell, even by GX standard, they were already incredibly outdated. That's one of the problems with the game, because it actually the speed actually moves along a lot actually with each generations. Older cards, and especially archetypes, have the risk to actually be basically obsolete very fast, especially if you're not careful. Especially how Master Rule treats particular types of cards. But it really depends, because it can even happen backward. Like, as Renting Yu-Gi-Oh! Analyzed, the archetype of Super Quant, which essentially is the Power Ranger equivalent when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh! Format, actually got better with the new format, because the Master Rule that was introduced with the Link era, which essentially, to make a very long story short, imposed the condition of having only one special monster between, Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, and stuff like that. Only one of them, restricted a lot of their playstyle, and Link monster that they obtained as a consolation prize for that was garbage. So when, the new Master Rule essentially unlimited again the space of how many special monsters you can have, it was actually, for the better. Oh, Panther Warrior.
Yes, Panther Warrior versus Panther Warrior.
So I'm curious to you, what's
Yeah.
your favorite fusion monster in the game?
Okay. That's actually a bit tough, because there's actually a lot of cool stuff that could be discussed about. I guess on an aesthetic alone, I guess I will go with maybe one of the Gem Knights. I guess doesn't that they're actually broken already on their own.
Mine is definitely Dragon Master Rider.
It's cool. It's cool, definitely, and it represents a cool moment in the anime. But until very recently, because Blue Eyes got a support card that allows you to summon it very much easily. But before that, you required a lot of effort, but much more than compared to, say, Flaming Swordsman, because you needed Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, which already you need free Blue Eyes and polymerization for that. And then you needed the original Blackluster Soldier, not even one of the substitutes that got released over the years. So you needed the original Ritual Monsters. So you needed a lot of setup. And even then, the payoff is not that much, because sure, you get a big beater, but its effect is even a bit underwhelming, to be honest. The anime effect was actually much better in that regard, and perfect to counter the 5-headed dragon,
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'll admit, it's my favorite basically off of coolness factor. I hate how tough it is to summon. I will say this, though. Way back in the earlier days of Yu-Gi-Oh! If you could summon that card, you were more or less set. Unless, say they had that weird trick card, and even then, I think around the time that this card was released, a lot of the cards that were like, destroy all monsters on the field were either limited or banned overall. Granted, some are now back into play overall, but...
I can't believe this, but while we were recording this, they actually limited, sure, but they technically unbanned Yatagarasu, which was considered one of the most broken cards in the early formats, and possibly one of the things that contributed to the creation of a ban list, and one that stayed there until now. It's really unprecedented. It showcases how different the game evolved. You were asking in one of the earlier parts, Dwibs, what was one of the more common strategy to break the game, potentially. Here's the thing. due to a combination of the Chaos cards that were released in the early part of the format. Hold on, actually, we won, so we need a dialogue from Junichi. I'll mention after we're done with the dialogue.
Parrot Dragon has been promoted. I swear I haven't even looked into the promotion, the motion system, because I don't know what it does really.
Oh, I love how the X equip card has the OG, the OCG design, not the TCG censored one.
That's because Theo, I'm playing a fan hack version of this game.
You did mention that.
Okay, go ahead.
Alright.
Looks like I underestimated you.
Damn straight. And we got his rose card.
I guess he took that loss in stride.
Alright, next opponent is... Oh, J. Shadi Morton. Okay, you're up, Dwips.
Why is he white? The white was Shadi. What the fuck?
I don't know what's going on here.
Okay, well, we get over a bit from that. Again, there were these kind of cards that were labeled with names like, for example, Chaos Emperor Dragon Envoy of the End, I think, or Black Luster Soldier Envoy at the beginning, for example. Which were a bit slightly tough to summon, but if you could pull it off, their special effect will allow you to potentially clean the opponent's board, as in almost completely. No cards on the field, no cards on the opponent's hand, and no cards in the graveyard. If you manage to pull that and then summon the monsters that I specifically mentioned before, Yatagarasu, you essentially win the game. Because Yatagarasu is a monster with a very small small number of attacks technically, but with an effect. If it manages to inflict double damage, as he manages to attack the opponent, properly net, the opponent cannot draw during their next turn. And if they already have their complete field cleared and no card, and they cannot, maybe not have no cards in their hand, if they're not even able to draw, essentially you have completely stun-locked the opponent. Sure, Yatagarasu has a bit of a caveat in a sense that being a monster labeled as a spirit, it returns to your hand at the end of the turn, but you just need to resummon in the next turn. But essentially you trap the opponent into a loop where they cannot do absolutely anything. And it's recognized even in the video games where if you manage to actually perform this trick, the AI actually surrenders, which is something that they extremely rarely do. And it got to the point, that's why the ban list was created, because people back then, as also Johnson Calvicioni said in his retrospective, started using only this combination. As you can imagine, this was not fun at all, doing both normal and competitive dueling. And as such, Konami actually had to intervene and try to balance things out. Unfortunately, it's not a perfect system at all, because even to this day, things get banned where they shouldn't be, and things get unbanned where they shouldn't be, all the goddamn time. But I would never have that over a way too chaotic system that allows you to break the game this easily.
Indeed.
At least, I was glad when the envoys were unbanned.
I think the envoys are currently unbanned. Let me check. At least Black Luster Soldier should be.
In the meantime, yeah. The basic gist when it comes to this deck, you have to have exactly 40 cards in your deck. Again, just like Forbidden Memories. And as you see right there, right now the deck the capacity is 973. Remember, in order to get Shadi's trading rose card, I have to have a deck cost lower than his. Mine is 973. Let's take a look at what Shadi's is. Go ahead.
Alright, so watching chat. Okay. Go ahead.
At last, we beat Duelists.
And he's in Paris, by the way.
You have soiled the roots of justice with your betrayal. Your mind lacks the seeds of truth.
Look,
you see, it's forked. Sometimes we really
Excuse
act,
me
and
for
sometimes
not
we
siding with the people who literally kidnapped me without answering my questions.
What Jova
I
says.
judge you unworthy and will punish you here and now. Should the power of your mind prove weak, you are Quiet. Just to fall before me. Okay, basically, guys, I'm doing another 4 kids trope. Half the time they use accents depending on the country they're in. Sometimes they don't.
Anyway, check Drova, and yes, both Blackluster Sojourn at the beginning and Chaos Emperor Dragon and Oblivion are currently unlimited.
Alright.
Wait, they're currently unlimited? Oh,
Yeah.
shoot. Last I'd seen that they were back, but
That
limited.
is also the reason why Yatagarasu managed to become limited from being forbidden. Basically, at this point of the game, there are quite a lot of cards, particularly in the meta, which don't need to be neither in your hand or the field to be activated. You just need to stay in your deck, potentially. So a player has more possibility to break out of the Yatagarasu loop than before. So technically speaking, that is the reason why it's unbanned, because people can get away with that.
Alright, let me explain this particular field. As you can see, Shadi's dual field is quite peculiar. It has 4 main zones, like a forest one, a rock one, a water one, and a dark one. Here's the problem. As you can see, in between the zones, there's an entire big cross of crushed terrain. Meaning, any strong monsters you may have will not be able to get to him. So you have to rely on either really weak monsters or do something else. So, Shadi's strategy is actually to try to wear us out. He's going to attempt a defensive strategy where he's just going to block himself out with strong defensive monsters and basically going to try his best to basically use some cards that inflict magic cards that inflict damage to my life points to see he can basically fill out the clock, basically wait out the clock and just have me lose by timeout. Because remember, you only have 99 turns per duel. Once those turns are over, the player with the highest life points wins. Unfortunately for Shadi, I'm playing that game too. I have plenty of cards that raise my life points and decrease my opponents, so I can play that game too, Shadi. Go ahead, let's waste all 99 turns. Sorry, Shadi, but you have met your match. I am, as I've demonstrated various times in certain parts of our playthroughs, I can wait as long as you can, game. Don't think you can outpatient me. I'll stay here for as long as I need.
It's not a typical strategy, but it is a strategy nonetheless occasionally where instead of trying to beat a character outright, other players try to focus on getting their opponents to run their decks dry. Essentially, if you have no more cards to draw in your deck, that's an automatic loss for you.
It's called stalling. It's usually done with cards that don't allow your opponent to attack, like say, I think it's called like Limiter Zone B, I think, stuff like that, or even single turn cards like Mighty Roar or Waboku. Stuff like that manage to get the effect not just to work in your advantage, but also to piss also the opponent off because they cannot really do anything.
In the meantime, might as well go over the characters themselves that we've talked about. So, well, actually, no, never mind. I already talked about Joey in the previous part, so I'll talk about Shadi, who's actually supposed to be John Morton. Do you know who John Morton was, Dibs?
No, sorry.
According to Wikipedia, John Morton was an English prelate who served as the Archbishop of Canterbury from 1486 until his death, and it was also Lord Chancellor of England in 1487. Right here, he was elevated to cardinal in 1493. Okay, basically. He served as a page in Morton's house from the age of 12 to 14. Morton then sent him to study at Oxford University, but More's father was adamant that his son should go on to study law, and about 2 years later he returned to London. More later expressed his admiration of Morton by casting him in the role of philosopher prince in the book Utopia. Oh, so he wrote a book, okay. Morton was also one of More's sources for his history of King Richard III. So yeah, again, he had some kind of tie to the War of the Roses. Some attempts to clear Richard's name of the murder of Edward V and his brother Richard, Duke of York, and other crimes attributed to him in his work argue that Morton, who fled overseas and plotted against Richard after the former had escaped from custody in 1483, wrote the book of and then later Richard III was killed at the Battle of Bosworth Field, which we'll see in this game actually. More had access to the... Basically, he was a bishop. Slash cardinal, slash chancellor, whatever. A nobleman, basically. We're learning a lot of history from your country, Duelists.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't the kind of history I was taught at school. The most, okay. I don't know if I even remember if this specific era in history was taught. I know about the 1066 battles, and I know, and there was all the stuff about the Tudors and the Victorians.
I find it weird that it sounds like my schools teach more on English history than your own English schools do for some reason.
I don't know what to tell you.
Dweebs, does your country have the equivalent of those far out American TV channel that have like programs like Secret History, where they're way too over the top and telling, oh, this super secret thing that they don't teach you at school, and then it turns out to be something very mundane or non-corroborated.
That's the thing.
Yeah, it's called Sky History.
That's the thing, like, based on what I'm seeing here, Dwebs, it seems like it is kind of a big deal. It says right here, the Wars of the Roses, known at the time for more than a century as the Civil Wars, were a series of civil wars fought over control of the English throne in the mid to late 15th century, fought between supporters of two rival countermeasures, the Royal House of Plenet, Lancaster, that's Yugi, and York, that's Kaiba. The wars distinguished the male lines of the two dynasties, leading to the Tudor family inheriting the Lancastrian claim. Following the war, the houses of Tudor and York were united, creating a new royal dynasty, thereby resolving the rival claims. So, yeah, that's basically Dwebs. Your country was basically going through a major civil war back in the 15th century.
That was because of the consequence from the 100-Year War, as also a game like Jeanne d'Arc actually mentioned, because unfortunately Henry V did die relatively early on when he was still young, and his son, Henry VI, was unfortunately, too young to take on the throne, and unfortunately the courts, the rest of the court at the British throne was essentially in a competition of who we can get to manipulate this poor child the fastest. It didn't happen, but apparently, sorry. I thought Pedro was saying something. My bad.
Actually, no.
Sorry. It doesn't happen, but unfortunately, Henry VI grew up in a very weak kind of state, meaning that it was also easy potentially to manipulate, and ultimately this led to the War of Roses when the throne became essentially vacant. This is why Jeanne d'Arc makes it kind of a plot point of diverging history by having Henry VI being manipulated by someone else and tapping into demonic forces.
Whatever. Again, Shadi, I can hold on as much as you can. Let's see who breaks first, bitch.
Basically, you can do this all day.
Exactly. I literally can do this all day. So...
Again, it's not a bad strategy. Credit where credit is due.
And keep in mind, remember, you're only allowed to have a total of 5 cards on the field at the same time. So, by surrounding himself with 5 cards, Shadi has now put himself in a position where he can't do anything unless I do something. I'm not kidding, he literally is stuck right now. Unless I go up there and destroy one of his cards, he cannot do anything at this point. As you can see, the AI basically stuck. It can't do anything. And since I already have more life points than Shadi, as you guys can see, I am literally... the game has literally made itself lose. All I have to do is wait for the
strategy against him.
All I have to do, there you go. See, now we're skipping to only when there's 2 turns. All I have to do was just sit here and just keep pressing start to skip my turn over and over and over, and eventually I would win because, well,
again, you used his own strategy against him.
Exactly. Don't challenge me to a contest of waiting things out, Shadi. You will lose. Basically, what I was doing, Joe, I was watching something on YouTube while one of my hands was holding the controller, constantly pressing start. Basically.
There we go.
You win.
Yes. Didn't expect that, did you, Shadi? Or sorry, John Morton.
God, by Jove, I lost. Me and my French anger condemn you.
Remember, John, even though you're in France, you're still British.
Yes, because logic.
Actually, it's because remember the
It
one
would
of the
seem that all is lost.
Wow, talk about downer.
But such is not the case. I've only just begun. Do you think you've power enough in 9?
Hold on. Yeah.
Your mind to face me?
Yeah, I don't know why his losing quote is like that, because no, don't worry, we don't have to challenge him again. Like, it makes it seem like I have to, but as you can see, I already obtained the rose card, so I have no reason to re-challenge him, unless I want to grind for more cards, of course. But it's weird dialogue choice for his losing quote, but whatever. And the next one is Jasper Dice Tutor, aka Yugi's grandpa. Alright, everybody.
Who's voicing Grandpa?
Teo.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, Teo voices
the equivalent ancestor, the dwarf guy.
Yeah. Teo voices Solomon. So. Sorry, not Solomon. God, I forgot his name.
The Attempts counselor.
No, I know. I forgot. Like, it's the same name as in Forbidden Memories, but I forgot what it was. It says something, whatever. But the point is, yeah. Next time we're going to defeat Yugi's grandpa. So let's change our deck capacity, since he actually has a higher deck capacity, meaning we can make our deck a bit stronger before we fight him.
Does he actually run an Exodia deck?
I think so, but I didn't really give him enough time to really do anything because I beat the crap out of him.
That's what we'll find out, I suppose.
Alright, see you for the next part, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.